What's going on? I'm Sam, and today I'm going to try and make my own track saw. So I've been wanting a track saw for a while for a few different reasons. One, the dust collection. Two, the very quick setup and precise cuts. And three is probably a combination of all of those. So anyway, I had almost ordered one the other day. I decided not to just because it's so expensive. Even the cheapest off-brand one is like $175 for the saw and the track, which I guess isn't actually that bad. When you get into the Craig or Festool track saws, the prices go way up from there, and I don't know, I already have enough circular saws. I didn't really want to add a track saw to that. I have a couple ripping and cross-cutting tools. One is the table saw. I don't really like to run that alone, especially with the FRP flexible sheets, mostly because the sheets are kind of hard to handle. I do have a guide that uses C-clamps to attach to the material. That one's pretty good. The setup takes a little bit longer, but it's still good. And then I have this clamp-on one for cross-cutting, which is pretty good as well, but especially for the FRP sheets. They're too loose and flimsy, so they don't really clamp up well, and they can also get stuck between the jaws and the clamp itself. I could clamp those down to a sheet of plywood and then clamp the clamp onto the plywood, but I don't want to go through all that setup. The thing is, I wanted this to be quick, and I wanted to make cuts very accurately and quickly. I was watching a video the other day, and I realized the guy was using a homemade track saw. So I started looking around at different people and how they had done it. I realized I could make something like that really quickly, really cheaply, and it would probably work pretty well. So I ended up getting my long saw guide, and I decided to screw this into a piece of ply that I had laying around. I countersunk the holes, screwed it into the ply, and then that was pretty much all I had to do to make this track. This is actually more of a zero clearance circular saw guide than a real track saw, mainly because there's no real track and the saw can still leave the track. It can go off of that guide. You have to hold it against the guide. That's another thing a track saw does have that this doesn't, is the plunge, which for most of my cuts, I really don't need any plunging ability, but that would be nice. Mostly I want the dust collection, which I will not get on this, and I wanted the quick setup. Now another thing with that quick setup is this is going to wander all over the part without clamps. So to get it not to wander, I went to Dollar Tree, bought a $1 drawer non-stick thing, and I glued that to the back. It wasn't quite long enough, so I had to cut it in half. I should have spent the $2 and bought two of them so I could have had full coverage on this plywood sheet. But it's good enough, at least for this. This could be a test. I can remake it a lot better later if it works out well. This is a trick I really like. I have some sprayable contact cement, and I use that to adhere the non-slip drawer stuff to the bottom of this OSB. This ended up being super cheap. I already had this saw guide. It's probably like $25 from Home Depot. I got the $1 drawer non-slip thingy, and then the plywood I had laying around. Though, even if you had to go buy a full sheet of plywood, right now the price is, I think, $15. So for around $40, you can make this, but you do have to have the circular saw already. So anyway, it's time to test this thing. All I have to do is put the circular saw on it and run it down the whole length of the track. That way I can cut off the plywood. Yeah, it's OSB. I don't know why I keep saying plywood. That's excess, and that will give me my zero clearance cutting ability, where I can line this plywood right on the line that I want to cut now, and I should be able to get it exactly without any measuring, clamping, or offsetting. Like the actual circular saw jig, I have to offset 1.5 inches on the one side, which makes my setup take that much longer. So that actually cut really good. It really did surpass my thoughts. So another thing this ended up proving good for is cutting countertop. I made this template. As usual, the template is actually what takes the longest. But once I had the template, all I did was staple it to the countertop underneath, and I was able to use this track saw to put along the template and cut the lines perfectly without any sort of trying to hold the saw steady or setting up my guide, which I would have had to offset 1.5 inches like I was talking about earlier. And I was able to get a very straight cut on an uneven surface, which was an added bonus, and it ended up fitting very well, and I am super happy with this. So this DIY zero clearance circular saw guide ended up working amazing. I am very happy with it. I'm going to be using it a lot, especially finishing out this food truck build. It makes cutting the FRP easier. I'd already done all the outer walls, but I cut the inner walls and the front counter FRP with it. It made it a lot quicker than before. Again, I guess setup wasn't super terrible earlier, but it's just so much easier to use this. Eventually, I probably will revisit it and make it a little better, but I'm very happy and impressed with the results I got from this very cheap jig, or saw guide, I guess. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, come on, bud. Oh, you ready to go home? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Hi, buddy. Let's go home. You ready to go? You ready to go? Huh? What you want?